Here's Cindy Dole.
Boy, it is a fun day. And if you haven't ever seen the Rose Parade in person because you're living in Southern California thinking, I don't know if I should do this, please come and do it. It's so spectacular to see in person. It's just, you can't compare. And if you haven't done that, you also consider going to the post parade, which, by the way, today and tomorrow, you have a chance to walk up in person and practically touch the floats and smell the roses, literally, as the floats will all be parked right there by Pasadena High School. And it's such a great opportunity to see all the detail that it's just so hard to come across on those TV cameras. Now, how is your Rose Queen wave? Do you have it down? Because here is the official court. Yvonne Elizabeth Friedman, the Queen from La Cañada High School, and her royal princesses, Tatiana, Sarah, Jessica, Tanya, Tanaya, I should say, Catherine and Michelle, all from local communities. These are great gals who competed among more than 1,000 royal court hopefuls who are leaders and stunning, talented, poised women who are very articulate and will be wonderful ambassadors for the Tournament of Roses throughout the year. And they have a beautiful wardrobe that is handpicked for them. And actually, these are outfits that you can find in Macy's. That's how it works. They have to be in a Macy's store, so you can actually find their suit that they wear and their gown that they wear. And so that is the royal court. Coming up next, right as I'm getting a quick bird's eye view from what they're calling the grandstands for all the media here, is one of my favorite floats. And it's the float of Donate Life. This, of course, is a tremendous float because it's a reminder of all the folks who have given, and the families of organ and tissue donors and living donors and recipients of life-saving transplants teach us all this profound lesson to seize the day. And so that is the theme. It is basically flying a kite. You're seeing a large kite being flown. And this is by the Phoenix Decorating Company, one of the professional float design companies. A lot of yellow and purple, and it's a windsock kite at the front of the float, and it's created by this fine cut yellow straw flower. Now, they use, of course, beyond the stars of the parade, which are the roses and the orchids, a lot of straw and dried flowers and things you'd find in your pantry, like split peas and lentils, and the list goes on. And now you're going to see kind of a background of a Kermit green chrysanthemum, and it's highlighted by fine ground green split pea, and the rose design created with light pink and red carnation petals, and boy, all the detail that goes into this. And you're wondering, when does it start? Well, literally, it is January 2nd, where they're already going to have sponsors lining up asking, can they be in the Rose Parade? And the answer is, well, maybe. And so what happens is these different designers present ideas, and they might have 10 different ideas for Company A's float, and only one of them will get selected. And there's certain rules. Of course, it has to be a message of goodwill, because that's what the Tournament of Roses is all about. And then, of course, there might be some corporate message, but it has to come in the spirit of goodness, because really that's why we have the Rose Parade. Now, all the flowers that come in, you think, hey, here we are in Southern California. We are the home of nonstop sunshine and great gardens. Well, believe it or not, a lot of these flowers come from other parts of the world. Why? It's economy. A lot of these flowers, like roses, are shipped in from places like South America. In Thailand, a lot of the orchids are coming from Thailand. South Africa. Who knew? But because of real estate and the economy, many of the flowers, fortunately and unfortunately, are coming from other parts of the world. It's for those in the other parts of the world that are reaping the benefits, because it's helping them quite a bit. It becomes a regular gig. So getting back to this great float, again, the Donate Life float, one of the float designers was telling me, it's hard to gauge which kind of float will really resonate with the crowd when you hear the people going woohoo and cheering from the stands. And sometimes it's the most simplistic design and the heartfelt message that really comes across that gets that reaction, just like the Donate Life float. And on that float, you'll see these 54 memorial floragraphs. What's a florograph? Well, it's basically a picture of a picture that's covered in flowers and seeds. And these 54 portraits, which, by the way, when you go to the post parade today and tomorrow, you can see up close, oh my gosh, thousands and thousands of little seeds. For instance, if there's lettering, often someone will use nail clippers to cut pieces of rice just to get the lettering down to the T, to give the proper memory. And thousands of roses from all 50 states, by the way, dedicated to those donors and transplant recipients. Now you're probably starting to hear another band make its way. This is the Central Carroll High School Marching Pride from Carrollton, Georgia. Another proud group of high schoolers making their way to get here today for this beautiful occasion, the New Year's Day Parade. Now, speaking of the making of the floats, you probably have a lot of questions about what happens to the float. And you know, what kind of glue do they use? Well, by the way, they have 4 different kinds of glue, including good old Elmer's, but then there's also a florist glue, and it gets very sticky putting all these materials together. And in fact, I spoke with this one woman who comes in from England every year because she considers this her way of therapy. And so it's an occasion where you too can get involved, but there's a lot to go into these making of the floats. And today, from 2 to 4 on KFWB, you can hear all about it. We went behind the scenes and talked with a lot of the designers and the volunteers, and a great chance to really understand more about all that goes into the float making. I mean, it is hours and hours of a process. One of the designers, a classic, legendary designer, his name is Raul Rodriguez, and we're going to be talking with him, I think, tomorrow. He always goes on one of these floats and has his parrot, Sebastian, by his side, but he draws all of the float designs by paint, with paint color, by hand. You're hearing another band in the background and a lot of applause. Guess what that is? That's the University of Wisconsin. Yep, the Badgers. A lot of the folks came in from Wisconsin to not only see the parade, the granddaddy of them all, but then to later go to see the game up against Texas Christian. Later, when we see the Texas Christian float, we'll find out what they finally used for purple. You know, purple and blue are really difficult colors to find in flowers for the float. And again, they can't cheat. They can't go to the local art supply store and use artificial flowers. It has to all be natural materials. In fact, you can use pepper, but you can't use salt. Guess why? You can't grow salt. It's a mineral. I didn't know that. You can't use salt in the float. So let's give it up for the University of Wisconsin. I hope we can listen to them as they march on by with all their spirit, because they're hoping to conquer in the Rose Bowl. Now, just coming around the bend on the TV side, you might be seeing on your TV screen right now the Dream Machine. This is the Farmers Insurance float, and it's kind of a combo mambo of everything from a boat to a car to a home. They got us covered, and their message is that the American dream, of course, owning a home and a car, and for many, our own business, right? And so that is their message, kind of combining it all. It's a 55-foot-long vehicle that's a much larger than life automobile, of course, and it's got a helicopter on there, and it's the body of the car boat is covered with the red and white carnations, and then of course those fine cut straw flowers are making their scene on there. They've been in this parade for 52 years, Farmers Insurance. And as the University of Wisconsin band, you can still hear them trailing in the distance. You might be on your TV screen seeing their float, which is the basically the helmet, the football helmet covered with mums and carnations, and the face guards of the helmets, and that silver leaf, which grows in Southern California and it creates that spectacular glistening look. In fact, it's used a lot for dolphins and a lot of the animals that you'll see on these floats. They have a lot of the crushed coconut, which we know is the optimum material for that bright, bright white. That's what floral designers love to use. Now, for those of you who are going to be watching the Rose Bowl game later on today, it looks like it's going to be good weather. They're saying that later tonight we are expecting some rain. So hopefully all the rain will come after all the activity and then flush out and have another clear Rose Parade-like weather day for tomorrow, as more of us can go and see the floats parked by Pasadena High School for the post parade. Now, these floats are all judged, and it's a big deal to the sponsors who are participating in the parade, because then they can say not only were we in the parade and seen by millions, but we won the sweepstakes, or we won the this and that, the mayors and so forth. And what's really interesting are the people who are the judges, and I have got to tell you who these judges are. Well, we all know who Debbie Turner is, right? She, of course, was Marta. The Von Trapps and the Sound of Music. She grew up here in Southern California, and she is an accomplished floral designer as her day job. In fact, she owns what's called Debbie Turner Originals. And another judge is a guy who knows his stuff, Kirk Hendricks. He spent 33 years in special events, working with the Indy 500, a lot of festivals, promotion events, that kind of thing. And then Nancy Clark, no pressure, but for 30 years she did all the decorating for the White House and spearheaded the floral decor there, so you know that she's got an eye for it. And so all these judges were the ones who would, over the past couple days in this past week, go to the different barns, so to speak, where all the floats are done up, and they would look very quietly with their clipboard and name their winners and give out these prizes. And so for the sponsors, it's a big thing, because they can go back and say, you know what, we done good. Now, if you're wondering, speaking of sponsors, how much does a float cost anyway? Well, the sky's the limit. You know what I mean? Everything could be negotiated. Some of these floats that are done really on a shoestring budget, like Sierra Madre, we'll be talking about them a little bit later on. They literally put a float together with minimum funding. They have no funding other than what they do from having fundraisers, whether it's a pancake breakfast or a burger flipping, you name it. And it can range from maybe 30, 50 grand to sometimes $500,000 for a rose float. Why is it so expensive? It's mainly because of the cost of the flowers, and then of course all that metal. Every time you see a float that's either has some animation and movement, that takes a lot of extra labor, and that is what gets expensive. All right, now you're looking at the underwater fantasy if you're watching on TV, and thank you for turning the volume down there and listening to us on KFWB. Cindy Dole here, having so much fun at what really, to me, is the beginning of a new year. I can't believe it's 2011. But this float that is marching its way down is by the Oddfellows and Rebeccas. It's underwater fantasy, and really it has a bit of a message. It's all about remembering the damage to the waters and the death of sea creatures in the Gulf area, and remembering that everywhere, seen and unseen, that we have friends, and that being the dream of a clean environment, the air on land and beneath. Beautiful float, by the way. It's a mama sea turtle in the front of the float. It has a shell of small white beans and lentil seeds. Now, moving on, we have the Rose Bowl Legacy Float. Now, this is great because it has everything that embodies the Rose Bowl. Everything from the B-2 bomber, the stealth, like we just had that stealth flyover moments ago when the parade began. It has the florograph images of the Rose Bowl history. And again, the florograph, you just have to see it in person because the detail of all those seeds that go into it, it looks literally like a picture. And it takes so much detail. We're using nail clippers to seed by seed put them where they belong. The stadium, of course, is the Rose Bowl logo, and this is a tribute to what's being done to keep the legacy of the Rose Bowl going. The stadium that was built in 1922 is going to be getting quite the renovation over the next few years, and this is kind of a tribute to that, with the Western Asset, one of the world's leading fixed income managers, sponsoring that float. In the car that's following the Rose Bowl float is the Hall of Fame inductees. You might know some of these guys, big guys. Brad Budd, USC, Hayden Fry of Iowa, Leroy Keys of Purdue, the former coach of Iowa. This is the Tournament of Roses honoring every year they do with the Rose Bowl game. Hall of Fame inductees with that ride in that special vehicle down Colorado Boulevard. This is a 1911 Hartford Pope that is provided by the Gooding family, by the way. Some classy, classy wheels. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, our special coverage live from where all the action is in Pasadena, the corner of Orange Grove and Colorado continues. I'm Cindy Dole, and we're proud to be broadcasting thanks to our partners, the Lions Club International, a beacon of hope since 1917, and Bayer Advanced all-in-one rose and flower care, the no spray formula that I use because it works 3 ways, controlling bugs and disease and feeds for brighter, more vibrant flowers. Bayer Advanced, better science, better results. Bayer Advanced.